Welcome to the Baby Playbook Podcast. Thank you so much for checking in. We are off on another episode covering another topic that comes to babies and parenting and the wild world of having a newborn and a new baby in your house, which there's so many things that you have to get your head around. And one of those things is, of course, as well, I think it just comes down to what to actually do with your baby and how play really comes into that. During the first 6 months, your baby is changing really rapidly in terms of their abilities, in terms of what they can see, what they can do, how they can react. It changes really quickly, and you kind of have to keep up with that change. And the more that you know about that, and the more that you know about their abilities and how they're changing, it'll really help you in kind of shaping your day and what to actually do with them, what toys to invest in, what sort of play mats make sense, what sort of, play cards they would really react to versus ones that they're not ready yet. There's some really great tips in this episode coming up that will help guide you during these first few months with your baby and right up to, when they turn 1 as well, as to how to approach playtime and toys and that really fun period of what to do with your baby each day. And I have a really special guest that's going to guide us through that today. Rebecca Naim, she is the owner of E&J Toy Co, which is a really smart way to approach baby play. What they specialize in is specialist boxes that are customized to your baby's age. So within that box, you get all of the different toys that aren't a waste of money. They're actually toys that your baby will be able to interact with at that age, will be able to learn from, will be able to gain skills from. And it really simplifies your approach in what you should be buying for your baby and what you should be doing them each day. And it really simplifies as well, kind of like your play area as well, which can really explode when it comes to how many toys you start to put out for your baby and think that they need at a particular age as well. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. That was quite the intro.
Yeah, well, I love this concept because I think anything that simplifies one aspect of parenting is really helpful because, we have to learn everything from what to feed the baby, how to breastfeed, what to do about their sleep, what to do about their, development. So toys and play is such a huge part of this first phase of parenting. Can I ask, how was it for you with your kids? Did it feel quite daunting kind of figuring out what to do with them?
Okay, so I've got 2 kids. I've got a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old. So if I'm thinking back almost 10 years ago to when I was first a mum and, going through that newborn stage, what I know now to what I knew back then is obviously wildly different. So what I knew about play was probably more based on our interactions with them. So I knew I had to expose them to language. I knew had to sing with them. I had to talk to them. I had to give them their first experiences, take them outside, introduce them to people. I knew about tummy time. But in terms of toys, I think I was kind of more like most other mums thinking, well, newborns, do they even really need toys? So I was like, well, what are they going to be doing to them? Your 4-week-old's not going to be picking up, a ball and this and that. Yeah, I didn't really know how to play with a newborn, in terms of toys. Like you'd put the toys on the pram. When they started teething, I knew that I'd have to introduce toys then. But in terms of like actually playing with them before the age of, I don't know, maybe 6 months, I didn't really know kind of what you needed to do then. Fast forward to my second. Now, I had taken my first son to a Gymboree class, and Gymboree is a fantastic program. It incorporates a lot of gross motor, sensory play, and a little bit of language development and reading, actually. So, but I didn't start that till he was a little bit older. So, what I learned from there, I did start to incorporate with my second a little bit earlier on. So, in terms of toys, using them as a tool to engage their senses. So rattles, feathers, bubbles, kind of things like that. But one key difference that I did notice with my second was the introduction, well, not really the introduction, but more of the awareness around high contrast images. So remember, we've got Facebook and Instagram feeding you ads now. So I got served this ad for this little high contrast book called Mesmerized, and it explains the science behind and the benefits behind the high contrast images. So I bought this book. Now, this book quickly became my gift to all new mums in my life because I saw how my baby was interacting with it at the time. Now, he was about 2 months old and a little bobblehead. They can't really keep their heads up. They're not really focusing. They kind of bobblehead their way through life. But when I'd show him this book with the high contrast images, so they had a mixture of patterns and smiley faces. When I'd show him the patterns, he would stop bobbleheading and he would just actually focus on that image. Then I'd turn the page and it'd be a smiley face and he would smile back. And this is a 2 month old. And I thought, wow, this is just magic. Like, there is so much more going on up there than we realize. So even though we think they're kind of not really absorbing the world, they really, really are. So that book was just my realization into how beneficial toys and tools and things like that can be at these early stages. So if I were to have a baby now, I would obviously incorporate all those things that I have learned along the way and definitely use play more intentionally in those first 6 months.
I love that. And that's the thing as well, is that there is a bit of a science behind, especially in your boxes, behind the toys in the box based on the age. So it really helps you with, especially with those long drawn out days with a newborn when there's like so much awake, sleep, feed time, awake, sleep, feed time, awake, sleep. Like the awake time just seems to keep rolling in and you're like, what am I going to do for this next hour? It's really nice to have like the set guide of these are your toys and this is what you can try with your little one. And then you also feel like, you're getting somewhere with it. It's actually fun for them. It's interactive. They're learning a skill rather than kind of just trying to, I guess, like waste time and get to the next sleep stage. Let's go through the ages because I'd love to get an understanding of what they are capable of and what they could learn. Let's kick off with the abilities of that 0 to 3 month old in terms of play and learning.
So one thing we need to remember when it comes to babies and children is that play and learning go synonymously together. So play is how they learn about the world, it's how they interact with the world, and everything they do should be play-based up until 8 to 10 years old. So that is especially important for our infants who are experiencing the world for the very first time. So when they're 0 to 3, so in that 0 to 3 month mark, we're primarily focused on developing their senses. So their sight, their hearing, their touch, and it's more about developing bonds with their caregivers as well. So, mum, dad, grandpa, whatever, anybody who's in their life. And those key figures are really crucial in helping to develop all of these, develop those skills. Their vision is developing, so really they can only see at this stage about 20 to 30 centimeters in front of them, which is why high contrast images are so appealing to them. But most importantly, we are helping to develop those language skills. Now, we're not teaching them to speak at this stage, but what we are trying to get them to do is to understand the rhythm and the tone of language. So getting them used to that. When I'm angry, my voice sounds like this. When I'm happy, my voice sounds like this. And just sort of just the rhythm of how we speak. So that's really important, that we need to really be speaking to our babies. That's why reading is really important to our babies. Even though they're not actually understanding what we're saying to them, it doesn't mean that it's not beneficial.
So I assume then it seems like there's a lot of observation from them during this time rather than like proper interaction.
Definitely. So, like I said before, everything they are doing, they are experiencing for the very first time. So they are observing the world. They're taking it in. Eventually, they will start to explore that a little bit more intentionally. But at this stage, it's kind of just like observing what's going on. Look, they can grasp things. They can start to track things. So they're listening. They're looking. They can pick some. They can't actually pick something up. So if you put something in their hand, they will grasp it. And key development that they will eventually learn is to be able to let that go. So an OT will explain this a little bit better than me, but it's called the palmar reflex. Palmar reflex? Yep, palmar grasp. So that just means when you put something in their hand, they hold on to it for dear life. So the more we put things in their hands, the more they're going to be able to develop that reflex to be able to let them go. And with tummy time, they might just be holding their heads up. They're not going to be doing much more than that. They're not lifting themselves up or anything like that. So if we then move forward to the 3 to 6 month mark, they're going to be doing all those things but just everything's going to be a little bit more intentional. So in terms of their sight, they're actually going to be tracking. So you might see them watch you walk across the room, or if you move something along their line of vision, they'll be actually tracking that. Okay. In terms of picking things up, they might actually go and they'll reach, they'll pick it up, they'll grasp it, they'll be able to put it back down. They might bring things up to their mouth. Remember, they're going to start feeding around 6 months old. So they will be starting to put things in their mouths. And tummy time. Tummy time will, probably extend a little bit more. They'll be lifting themselves up. They might even start rolling at this age too. Actually, they will start rolling at this age. So a lot of little developments, but basically everything's going to be a little bit more intentional, a little bit longer at these stages.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for breaking that down, because again, it's really good to have like an expectation of what they can do and then how you can kind of help them to get to that point. You mentioned tummy time a little bit there. I'd love to just, get a little bit of a deeper understanding of tummy time, because that is something that you're told, even I think in the hospital, make sure you're doing your tummy time with them. But I guess there is some limitations in terms of their age and how capable they are. Can you give us a little bit of a guide on tummy time and how that actually helps them as well?
So tummy time is so important. It's their baby gym. It's their daily walk. They need it, and they do need it from day one. So it's never too early to start. You're just going to be a bit more conscious of how much time you're giving them. So with a newborn can definitely do tummy time. You might not be putting them on the floor at this stage, but you don't have to put them on the floor. We can do a nice chest to chest, give them some chest to chest time. So if you're lying down horizontally, putting them on top of you, that's considered tummy time. Even just, placing them over your lap. Now, when we're starting, we're only going to start for about a minute or two at a time. And remember, babies' waking windows at that stage aren't very long. So you're not going to be giving them 10 minutes of tummy time. They wouldn't be able to handle that anyway. So we start with 1 to 2 minutes. Once they're okay with that, we expand it a little bit, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, up until about 10 minutes when they're 6 months old. So we kind of want to aim for about half an hour a day, all up. So not in one go, but we are breaking that up. And obviously a newborn, we're not going to give them half an hour a day, but we're just going to give them what we can. I think it's also important to remember that babies are different, just like people are different. Some people like exercise, some people don't. So if your baby doesn't like it, that's okay. I had 2 boys. My first one hated tummy time. He also did have quite a large head. And I know babies with big heads don't really like tummy time because it's too hard. They've got to lift their head up, but that means they crawl a little bit later and things like that too. So if your baby doesn't like it, that's fine. You want to push through though. We don't want to just take it away altogether, but you will, get to that 10-minute mark a little bit slower, and that's fine. So just gradually increase it based on what your baby, based on what your baby is, capable of, based on what they're liking. But that's why toys are a really good tool with tummy time, because it's a distraction, and it's a chance to bond, but also it makes it more fun. So if you're going for a walk and you're listening to something, it's more enjoyable than if you're just not. So it's the same with our tummy time, but it's really, really important to get that time in, because it develops your neck, your back, your core muscles, and we need these to be able to roll, crawl, sit up, walk. It even affects your riding later. So it's really, really important to get an adequate amount of time in when they're little.
Right. I love that. Thanks for breaking that down as well. Well, let's talk about buying toys, because this can be really overwhelming. You mentioned just then that your algorithm completely changes when you have a baby, and all of a sudden you are fed a lot of toy content. And I think especially in this world of overconsumption, when you're really vulnerable as a parent as well, a lot of the marketing behind some of these toys are you need to have this for your baby because it's the best thing for their development. And if you don't have this, they're not going to be able to develop in this way, in this way. Anyway, let's cut through all of that. How should we approach buying toys during this time, where we're not just wasting our money on a million different gadgets that we just hope they'll be distracted by, and we're actually being a little bit more conscious about what we're buying at what stage?
So that's a really, really good question. And it's a big question, and there's a lot to unpack here. So I'll do my best to try and, give you the core pieces. But I did mention before that At this stage, play and learning go synonymously together. So we want our toys to be able to teach them things. And that doesn't mean they have to be boring. I'm actually going to go a little bit left of field now. I'm going to give you a little bit of an analogy, and then I'm going to come back to answering the question. So I want you to think, if you were going, when you're introducing your baby to new foods, if you were going to give them things like, custards and chocolate, all that really, decadent, delicious, stimulating and, sugary foods. And then you were to give them a steamed potato or a steamed carrot. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? They're going to get used to that, the taste of those sugary foods, and that's what they're going to be drawn to. Suddenly, the potato and the carrot aren't so fun anymore. But key things, we've got one that's really good for them, and the other one is not so good for them. So let's put that analogy to the side right now, and then I'm going to pick that up a little bit later. We don't want toys that are playing for us. So think about those toys, those plastic toys that when you press a button, they light up, they sing the alphabet to us, they'll count for us, and it's usually in like a muffled American accent. So what are we learning from that? It's too overstimulating. So then when you give them a block, what are they going to do? And that goes back to my analogy before with the, chocolate custard and the potatoes. One is good for us and one is not. And the thing with this is, when you are exposing our little ones to all these overstimulating things, and that goes into iPads, too much tech time, it really does bleed into the classroom later on. I've been teaching for about 14 years now, and we can really see how hard it is to keep our kids focused. And the issue is that starts from, this age. So it's really important that we pick the right toys for our kids and give them, the right kinds of experiences and stimulation, because it just affects them.
Yeah, I think, it's interesting because even when I, go out to the shops with my kids now, they're obviously a little bit older, so they can kind of like choose what they'd like to buy. Kids do tend to go for those toys that can do more, right? So like if it can do more, if it has more buttons, if it has more lights, if it has more features, it's like they're more excited about it and they're it's more appealing to them. But it's really interesting to know that, that is having obviously an impact on their focus time, their ability to actually learn from it and actually, have the motivation to, do something for it to actually respond. But rather, there's all these toys that are doing everything for them, right? So it's really interesting because I think those toys are the most marketed right out there, is like bang for your buck. You can get this one that lights up and then you can turn it into a scooter and then it'll move here and then it's motorized and like all this stuff. But what you're saying is actually to pull it back a little bit and go by, okay, what can they actually learn at this age and what can they actually do at this age and what are we trying to motivate them to do, whether it is to like grab something or to pull something or to learn how to grip, as you mentioned, and what toy will help them to do that rather than do it for them, is what I'm understanding.
Oh, definitely. So you've got to think like, what were we playing with when we were younger? What were our grandparents
Rocks,
playing with when they were?
Yeah.
So those kind of toys, you have to, a rock. So
Yeah.
a rock or a block or a dinosaur that doesn't make any noise, for instance, you have to do the playing for that. So you have to come up with the scenarios. You're using your imagination, you're using your creativity, you're using your language, your own language. So instantly those toys become more beneficial than, something like we were saying, you press a button and it just lights up. So even though that's probably more stimulating, and of course it would be, it's not something you want to be introducing to an infant. There's a place for those types of toys later on, but the first toys we give them should just be those simple toys that teach them cause and effect, that they are doing the playing and the toy is not playing for them.
Yeah, I really love that analogy as well. That's a really great way to put it because you're so right. Like it will become, and if you do that at the start, of course, sometimes like you can only do what you can do, but trying to take that chocolate away for them or that really interactive toy, as we're trying to say, is going to be much harder than if they don't know it exists, or like,
100%.
if they only get it, at grandma's house for a short period of time, like really getting them used to what is at home and what they should be spending their time, doing. I really love that because it gives us such a great understanding, Rebecca, of what toys can actually do for our children. Now, the other thing I want to ask you about is, of course, gifts, because an element of even when you're pregnant, part of your baby registry and for your baby shower and stuff, you might be adding toys to that, or you might be being offered by family and friends, we'd love to buy them this or buy them that. What is a healthy conversation to have with people where you are trying to say, I've done a little bit of research and this is actually what I'm really keen on getting, or perhaps, I'd like to buy this particular E&J Toy Co box. Is it okay? First of all, I think it is, to request or to just give ideas. And how should you approach perhaps when you do get gifted a gift that you're not necessarily too keen on them playing with? I mean, a re-gift is always a great option, but that's like behind their back,
Oh, regifting. Yes, I think we all do that. Look, that's a good question. And I think, think about yourself. When somebody asks you, oh, hey, your son or daughter's birthday is coming up, oh, what would they like? You don't mind answering that question. So I don't know why sometimes we feel like, oh, we shouldn't be asking. Because, it's fine. And you'd rather get somebody something that they're actually going to appreciate, that they're actually going to use. So I think it's fine to ask, and I don't mind being asked, what somebody would like to buy for my kids. So when it comes to telling other people what we want out of our toys, I think it's very similar to kind of what I was saying, but some more specifics, because, you don't want to give them a whole spiel with an analogy about chocolate and, potatoes. So we want toys that are kind of those classic toys. So if I'm going to buy a toy for somebody, it would be something that they could use across multiple ages. So for instance, building blocks. So, just those wooden building blocks, a baby can pick them up. When they're a little bit older, they'll be able to stack them on top of each other. Fast forward a couple of years, they'll be able to build cities with them. So that's a really great gift to give somebody, because it's not just for one particular stage. It's something that can take them across multiple stages. Lego is another fantastic toy. It's a little bit different in though you have to actually buy the different pieces. So when they're infants, you need the mega blocks. Then you move on to Duplo from about 2 or 3, and then you've got the little Lego pieces. But they're good because there's something you have to actually keep buying as well to keep up with the developmental stages. So there's some really good ideas with gifts. And just anything that's kind of open-ended. So I think I'm sort of delving a little bit into older play because, when we think of traditional type playing, we're thinking of actually the children playing with the toys. So, I mentioned before about dinosaurs, dolls, and things like that don't make any noise, don't make any sounds, but the kids are going to be having to play with those toys and make those scenarios up. So they're always really, really good. And you want to pick something that that child is going to enjoy playing with. So if they're not into dinosaurs, you're not going to buy them dinosaurs. And that's another really good question to ask whoever you're buying gifts for. What are they into? Now, this does, this is more around those older kids. So if we're buying for babies, so if we bring it back to 0 to 6 months, you want things that are soft, that they can pick up, something with a soothing sound, something that can roll. Mirrors are great. So if I'm going to plug my box, our 0 to 6 month box has all those things. So things with mirrors, things with soothing sounds, but, model off those types of things.
I love all those options, because that really helps with putting together like a bit of a list for people. The other thing I wanted to share as well in this episode as well is making sure that you are kind of like moving along with the age appropriate toys. So Rebecca, I don't know what your system was, but like we have a bit of a system that when a birthday comes along, because you do tend to have this like influx of toys at a birthday, I'll get a big box out and it's like, okay, it's time to like, let's go through the play area. What's actually not really challenging them anymore? What have they kind of grown out of? What can we kind of like get rid of, and what could we potentially introduce, just to be able to keep the area contained slightly, because that toy areas can get quite overwhelming. But then two as well is you'll start to also realize what you said before, like we have a box of magnetic tiles and we have a box of Lego, and that's been there for like 2.5 years now, since even when Leo was a little baby, when Noah was playing with it as a toddler, Leo was grabbing the little, the pieces and the blocks and the little magnet tiles and looking through them. So you actually start to notice what actually is working through the ages.
Yeah, no, I do the same thing too. Christmas time comes around, we do a big toy cleanup. And what I actually like to do is I like to donate them. So I'll either donate them to our local preschool, or sometimes I just put them on Facebook Marketplace for free. Somebody will always come and pick them up. You don't want to throw them out if, they serve a purpose for somebody else. So I think that is a really good way to keep stock and track of all of your toys. So, and just to replenish as well. Because if they're not using something, you don't want it sitting there collecting dust. I also want parents to consider, maybe if they haven't played with something in a long time, what is the reason? Is it because they haven't seen it? Because, when you go through that toy purge, suddenly they want to play with them, all the things again. So a good way to know whether they actually want to play with these toys is to do a kind of toy rotation throughout the year while they're playing. So what that means is, the toys that are on display, you are going to chop and change maybe weekly. So what toys that are available to them, either if you have them on display or just have them within reach, are going to be different week after week. So what I mean is pack away half of your toys, and then bring them out again. Because if they're new, they're not new, but they might think they're new, they will want to start playing with them again. And if you bring them out and they don't want to play with them, we know we can throw them out. But also, I suppose you will know, developmentally what your children are going to be wanting to play with. But just like you said, you brought out magnetic tiles. That's not developmentally appropriate really for a 6-month-old, but they can still gain benefits from being exposed to those types of toys from the different developmental stages.
Yeah, totally. And this sounds like your analogy or your instructions actually sounds like me going through my wardrobe every 6 months.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we all know, especially after you become a mom, you're like, I haven't played with that for 6 months,
Yeah.
but I am still going to keep it here. And then in another 6 months, it's still in.
Yeah, if another 6 months you still haven't worn it, you can throw it out.
Yeah.
But I guess I say that because I think and this is more, again, heading into the older years. But I think there, is a little bit of a danger when you take away toys too early. So my son's 9, for instance, and he still plays deeply. And when I say plays deeply, I mean, he will pick up his superheroes or now his wrestlers, and he will play for 20, 30 minutes, like coming up with all those little scenarios. And that's a skill. Like, I can't do that. Can you pick up a Barbie and an elephant and then, play for half an hour and come up with this whole story? No, you can't, because we haven't done it in so long. So, it's important not to take away, toys too early, because they're still kids. Back in our grandparents' day, you'd have 12-year-olds still playing with Barbie dolls. We don't really see that much anymore. So, just keep in mind, we don't want to take away toys too early, but it is important to make sure the toys that are available to them are, they're still serving a purpose. They're still interested. They're still developmentally appropriate. So we do want to have that clean out. So, because if our toy room is filled with all these toys, what are they going to pick? Lots are going to get left behind. So it is important to keep doing that, but keeping in mind, toys are still very important.
Well, you've definitely motivated me. I feel like my toy area is actually just behind me here. So I may do a little bit of a squiz through that this afternoon while I have some time to get through it. Rebecca, thank you so much for sharing so much here. Again, I think it's so important. I know I've spoken before about, for me, the newborn phase was really overwhelming, and I was very confronted with like the cycle of every day and just like getting through, you wake up so early and then you're like, okay, feeds, feed, sleep, play, repeat, whatever the cycle is. And I felt like for a really long time, because I didn't have really an understanding of what I was meant to do with my baby, I just felt like I was surviving each awake time. I think that if we can actually put some purpose in play, developing their skills, have a bit of a list even of like what we could do with them each day, which integrates those toys. I actually think it has much more benefits just to the baby. It actually has a lot of benefits to mums as well. It gives you purpose. It gives you a project to work on, while you're off work. It gives you direction at a time when like you don't have much direction at all and you are super overwhelmed. So I think this is why I love what you do. I love these boxes that you put together. As I mentioned, Rebecca is the creator of E&J Toy Co. And we'll just go through what they actually have now to explain as well, again, that you've got these boxes, age appropriate, put together, everything in that box for what you need for that particular age bracket for your baby. And then you can keep going with the team where you get the 0 to 6 month box, and then you get the next age box, and it goes all the way up to those later years as well. So if you'd like to check them out, E&J Toy Co as one.com is where you can check out all of the boxes, but you can also, of course, follow them on Instagram, Facebook, and you've got the TikTok going as well. We're also going to be doing a giveaway, which I love, for this episode. So one lucky listener who enters and pops in their email, you can do that. So I'll put the link in the show notes, but it is at heynicolinak.co. Pop in your email. You will be automatically entered into the giveaway, and you will be able to choose a box from the website as your gift. Thank you so much for being so generous with that, Rebecca. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.